Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to do an unhauling of a bunch of books. Mostly I've read, some of them I haven't read, but I have reasons why I want to unhaul them, and I've been slowly stuffing them all in here. So you can see that I'm running out of room, so I do want to kind of pack them up, but I thought, let's go through them. Everybody loves a good unhauling. Well, most people do. So I'm just going to start pulling them out randomly and telling you which books I'm unhauling from my collection. Okay, so these first two I have kind of read halfway and then I DNF'd. So I have In at the Deep End by Kate Davis. I did pick this up in Waterstones actually. I paid full price for this crappy book. I thought this was going to be really fun and funny. It's a contemporary romance. It's about a girl called Julia who has never really had good relationships with guys, and suddenly she realized she's a lesbian, so she dives into relationships or situationships with women in the book, and it becomes a little too raw for me. There's a lot of instances where she's put herself in really bad situations, and I was not a fan of this at all. I like sweet books, and then when it comes to romance, I like tender romance, I like romantic things. This was just a book that was trying to shock the reader as well as shock Julia, because she's in at the deep end and she's trying to learn to be a lesbian. I don't think this was a good representation. I'm simply that's based off of me reading other comments on Goodreads from women who wanted to enjoy this book and did not. So I ended up DNFing it, and it's definitely, I'm gonna get rid of it, but actually, when I talk about like the worst books that I read this year, that has to be on the list. Second to that is Assistant to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Mayer. I got this at a charity store. Thank goodness I didn't pay full price on this, because I don't even think this is a complete book. I don't think it's a complete story. I don't think it's developed enough, and it's just not cute and cozy. There's not enough of the villain and what he does. It is very boring and tedious and just written really badly. So I read like halfway through, and again I had to DNF it, and I just don't want these books to linger on my shelves. They're not a representation of the kind of books that I enjoy reading, and I want my shelves to end up having books that I enjoy reading. Okay, and then we have these two books. So I am so glad I didn't buy the whole collection at the point that I could have, because I think there's maybe 5 books of these. This is the Plated Prisoner series by Raven Kennedy. So I have Guild and I have Glint. Okay, so I read the first line of Guild and I was like, ooh, this looks like a fun book to read. And then I finished the first page, and the pages are not long, and I realized you jump right into essentially an orgy, and it's just awful. It's not for me. I am not into that, and I'm sure there is a plot to these books. There are 5 of them. But I am not reading for that. So this one, I think I read 4 pages and I was done. And because I have the second book in the series, I was like, I'm never going to read that. So I have to just DNF both of them, like actually unhaul both of them from my collection. So following sort of the dark romance, I realized I'm just not a dark romance fan. I did read Hooked by Emily McIntyre, and I didn't pick up any of the other books in this sort of Twisted, I think it's the Twisted series, something like that, or the Never After series. No, this is the Never After series. I didn't pick up any more books. I'm so happy that I did. I think every single book is different, but they're like retellings of fairy tales, and this one obviously is Peter Pan retelling, but it's not really a Peter Pan retelling. It just has people from the Peter Pan story in here, but the actual plot itself is different and it's silly. I didn't DNF this book. I read the whole book and I think I gave it 2 stars. I think I was being generous. It's for the worst books that I've read so far in my booktube career, as it were. It's not the worst one, but it definitely is within the worst. And there's no point me keeping this book around. I will never pick it up again, never want to read it. I don't even remember the character. I mean, I remember, no, I don't want to keep this. So I did read that one. Another one that I read, I reread this one. So I read this book twice, and I just read this recently, is Mr. Maybe by Jane Green. And I just don't want to keep this. I don't feel the need to keep it. I will never go back to this book. There's nothing horrific about it. It's not, you know, dark romance or anything. It is just your average early 2000s chick lit type of book, and it's very dated, and the character or characters in here are very dated, and I couldn't connect with them. I couldn't really connect with their purposes and their wants and needs and everything else, and I didn't find too much enjoyment actually when I reread this. I gave it a 2-star. Again, I think I was being really generous, and there's no point in me keeping this on my shelf. It's just not a book that I would want to recommend. It's not a book I'd want to reread again, which is such a shame because I reread it because I remembered the title of the book, and I remember that I liked it at some point, but I don't know why. So this one's going too. Sorry, I'm just gonna grab my tea. I don't know if you can hear my throat, but I'm a little gravelly. I'm getting over a cold. All right, we still have plenty down here. I know that I'm not like pulling from my shelves, but I had already like segmented a lot of these books. Now these next two, yeah, are kind of disappointing for me, I'm not gonna lie. So I picked up The Serpent and the Wings of Night last year before the second book came out, and obviously this is the old version. I think they've come out with like the new reprinted versions, or they will be. This is by Carissa Broadbent. It was the first book that I'd ever tried from her, and I actually liked this book. I gave this a 4-star. I read it in like a day. It is a long, chunky book. Plenty to read in there, but I found it really, really easy to read, and I generally liked the book. I did. I thought there were issues, of course, in the book and the story, but as a whole, I really liked the trials in here. I thought they were interesting, and the love interest I really liked, and I also liked the ending of the book because it kind of, you know, you're left on a cliffhanger. You don't really know how the story is going to go, but it kept me intrigued and excited to want to read the second book. So I scoured online, and I couldn't get the second book in the same print. I was really trying to get the same print. I didn't want to get like a new copy of it, and I found it on Amazon as a used copy. And then what was sent to me? This was sent to me. Doesn't even have the dust jacket. This is a hardback. It is the right book, but they didn't send the dust jacket, which would have copied this one and somehow matched. I mean, they don't even match anyway, but it was so annoying. Anyway, I paid a stupid amount of money for this book because I wanted to match it, which is not why you should buy books and read them, but whatever. I finally ended up reading this book as well, and I gave this a 2-star. I thought this was really poorly written. I thought it was rushed. I didn't think there was much of a story. And I think the cliffhanger that we end the first book on was good. And I was really hoping for this book to follow through at least 100% on one way or the other. It kind of meandered in between the middle of, you know, her kind of hating him, but you know that she's not going to hate him. Like, just the way that it was written, you know, yeah, it's a romantasy. So I was hoping that in some kind of way it would be kind of like ACOTAR, where she would end up hating him and we would end up hating him, and maybe she would fall in love with somebody else, but it didn't happen that way. And the story that is like this, there's like a big battle in this, but I didn't find it to be all that interesting. Sorry, this one is called The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King. This was also voted on the Goodreads choice for Best Romantasy. It was one of the options, and I tell you what, I did not vote for it. I did not, because I read it before the that all came out, and I was like, if anybody votes for this, who are they and why? A lot of people were giving this 4 or 5 stars, and I just did not understand why. Like, I can understand like why people would like the first one, because I'm biased and I did like the first one. Even though it wasn't perfect, I enjoyed it. But the second one was just, it was just not on the same level. Maybe because it didn't have the trials. Maybe I like the first one because it had the trials, but when you take the trials away, what are you kind of left with? You're kind of left with empty shells of people and characters that are not fully well developed, and the world wasn't fully well developed. It definitely felt rushed, and I think I read some articles where Carissa definitely rushed the book because she needed to get it released because she felt pressure. Like, I read somewhere that happened, and if it did, then it's pretty obvious. But yeah, I don't think I'm going to read anything else from Carissa Broadbent, just at least for now, because I even felt like in this first book, her writing style wasn't the best, but I got through it because I kind of overlooked the issues that I had, but it was so glaringly obvious in the second book that the issues with the writing I had in this one, there was nothing to mask it. It was just there because there was literally nothing else on the page but the way she was writing stuff, because there was nothing going on in the second book. It was so boring. So anyway, I'm gonna unhaul these. I thought about, well, maybe I'll keep the first one and get rid of the second one, but why am I gonna keep the first one? I'm not gonna reread it again. It was a cute story. I liked where I thought the story was going to go, but knowing where the story went, there's no point me keeping it. So it's kind of a shame. I did tab it quite a bit. But yeah, I'm going to try to give all these books away. All right, I've got another group of books here. Okay, so all through it, no, actually, there's one here that I DNF'd. So this next one I listened to on Audible. This is How to Kill Your Family by Bella Mackie. I mean, usually when I have a physical copy of a book, I don't listen to it, but I really struggled with how dense this book was. And so I put it, you know, I put it on, I started listening to it, and I think I was playing a game at the same time when I listened to this book. This could have been really good. It could have been a really funny, dark, humorous, satirical sort of thriller book, and it just ended up not being that, and the character herself was unlikable. And I think that you can have an unlikable narrator and character if you do it well, but I don't think it was done well. And it kind of is told from her perspective, so you really don't know if really what you're being told is true. And then there's kind of a twist at the end, like a aha moment, but then by the end of the story I really didn't care, and I couldn't have cared less what happened to our main characters. So I think generally maybe these types of books are just not for me, or it was just the way it was written. I felt it was really densely packed. It was easier to listen to it, but even listening to it, I kind of just didn't care and I didn't like it. But yeah, it's just about her retelling how she ended up killing people in her family. Like that is the book. But it's supposed to be quirky and funny, and there's reasons to it as well. And I can see where the humor would have been had I found it funny or cute or whatever, but I didn't. So I give that a 2 stars as well. I mostly give books 2 stars if I don't like it. It's very rare I give a book a 1 star. However, this next one I read, I think, up to page 100, and I had to DNF it. This is Court of the Vampire Queen by Katie Robert. I thought this was going to be a dark romance, but this is pure smut. From page 1, there is sex on every single page, and there is also polyamorous sex and things like that. And I think what I've realized, the same for the Plated Prisoner series, that was all polyamorous, you know, just like orgy sex and stuff. I'm not into that. Or at least just read, like, I'm not into reading that. I don't know. I didn't realize I was such a prude, and maybe I'm not a prude, but for me, I want to read books that emote me and I feel something or I can connect to something. I don't want to read smut, I've realized, especially this kind of smut where you don't even know who the characters are, you're just thrown right into it. So yeah, this is just about a girl who her father basically despises her. She's half vampire and half human, and her father sells her to this vampire as his blood slave. That's basically what the story is, and this vampire that she's sold to is under this sort of curse where he can't really leave this house, and I don't know, like his friends come round and they all get together. It's just, you know, if you like these types of books, that's absolutely fine. But I got to page 100, which is, this is a long book. Like page 100 is only like here, right? I got to page 12, which is 98. So I got here, and then you have all the rest of this book. And yeah. That one I would have, had I rated it, I would have given it a 1 star or less than a 1 star. It's just not my type of book, but each to their own, I suppose. And then this next one I just recently finished. This is The Woman Who Lied by Claire Douglas. This one, I wouldn't even say it's like a worst book of the year because it's so forgettable, this book. It is so forgettable, I even struggle at this point to tell you what it is about. It's about this author who has several books, and she wants to kill off her main character in a book, in a novel that hasn't been published, and then these weird coincidences happening in her life, and she's stalked, and she doesn't know who it is. And that's basically all I can tell you because I can't really give away what really happens, but it's a very boring book, and I wouldn't recommend reading it. I gave it a 2 star, very forgettable, and not worth me keeping around. All right, some of these books, I think a bunch of the rest of the books were all in my worst books of 2023, and I've just been holding on to them, but I do really want to just like get rid of them now. So the first one is Twisted Love by Unhaul. I did read this. I haven't read any of the other, this is the Twisted series. I haven't read any of the other ones, but I really didn't enjoy this. This was a recommendation from a friend of mine. I did give it 2 stars. I just thought it was just like, nah. I have heard that maybe the second book is better than this one, but I just don't feel like I want to give this a shot because I don't think these types of books are for me. I don't care about them. So I want to get rid of that one. I also have The Maid by Nita Prose. I thought this was a really bad book. And then this one is basically a 1 star or less. This one also, I wouldn't even consider it a complete book. It's The Secret Life of an Uncool Mom by Serena Terry. And I got this on a whim and thought it would be funny, cute. You know, I am a mom, and this is about a 30-year-old mom who is just struggling to be a mom, and I thought, well, that will be fun and maybe give me something to hold on to and laugh about. And it was really just this woman who, instead of being a good mother or a good partner, she was just being an absolute idiot and trying to change her whole life. And it's not the way that I view how to be a mother in your 30s, and I felt like it was written by someone who wasn't in her 30s. And maybe that's the case, I don't know, but I couldn't relate to it at all, and it wasn't funny at all. Okay, so then we have Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. I did read this. This was, again, a recommendation from a friend. And this one, what can I say about this one? So many issues with this book, so many issues. I don't even want to go into them, but there are people out there who have dedicated videos about this book, so I would wholeheartedly ask you to watch those videos instead of me trying to explain all of the issues surrounding this book. And trigger warnings, oh my goodness, I had no idea there was so much trigger warning in that book. Then we have The Pumpkin Spice Cafe by Laura Gilmore. I got this thinking it was going to be really cute, autumn, sort of fall-esque book and give me all the feels that I wanted during that time, pumpkin spice, lattes and all that stuff. And it was just a terrible, terrible romance book. It was so boring. I was just skim reading it. The page, like the writing is so huge. This book could have been like 200 pages probably. And it's just, it was insta love, and I don't like insta love, I've realized. So that one was a huge bad one for me. And then this one, I actually have not read this on my booktube, but this is a book that I've had for years, and I read it ages and ages ago. It's called Based on a True Story by Delphine de Vigan, and I couldn't tell you what this is about. It's about something about a girl and her identity and another woman that she meets. I'm not going to read this again, so I'm going to unhaul it because I know that when I first read it, I didn't like it, and for some reason, I just kept it around. So I'm unhauling it. I couldn't tell you what it's about other than what I've told you, which might be completely wrong. I just don't remember liking it all that much. Also, my dog got into it, so. All right, I have 3 more books. So this next one I haven't read, but I know I'm not going to want to read. So I was in England in January, and in Costa they had like these like books that you can get for £1. They were all like wrapped up, and this one was titled Romance, and so I put my £1 in, grabbed the book, and unfortunately I'm just not interested in these historical romances. This is like a really old book. This is Annie Murray, Now the War is Over. No interest in reading this whatsoever. I did give my money obviously to charity, so that's great. But other than that, just not interested. So, and then I have 2 more books here. These are from a series. I'm actually keeping the first book. Yeah, I'm keeping the first book because the first book is the one that I enjoyed the most, which I think is the book that most people hated the most. So maybe I just have weird taste. But I did read The Billionaires, the Dreamland Billionaires trilogy by Lauren Asher. So this is the second one, Terms and Conditions, and then I have Final Offer, and then the first one is Fine Print. Everyone hated Fine Print, but I actually didn't mind it, so I'm keeping that one. Terms and Condition is about the oldest brother and him marrying his secretary, and there's a huge power dynamic, and it's pretty bad. Terrible book. I really hated him, and I didn't understand the character that he married. I can't remember her name, but I didn't understand why I didn't understand why she would go through with it, because he's just very unlikable. And then we have Final Offer, which is about the youngest brother, and he goes back to like their childhood home, and his childhood sweetheart is there with a child, and you know, obviously this is like second chance romance and stuff, but I didn't like him because of the way that his addiction was portrayed in the book. He has a huge like drinking problem and drug problem, and I didn't think that it was done well in the book, so I didn't like that aspect of it whatsoever. So I just found really I found it hard to like any of the characters. But Fine Print, I actually didn't mind it. It was like enemies to lovers. I don't see any other books to unhaul, so that's it for now. But thank you so much for watching. And if you've read any of these, let me know your thoughts and feelings. I'm gonna see if I can set up a Vinted account, but I am based in Portugal, so I would only really be able to ship out like to EU places, and that's probably not going to be ideal for most people, especially because most people don't speak English in the EU, and all these books are written in English. So I don't know how I'm going to get rid of these books, but obviously I don't want to chuck them. I want to give them to people who actually want them. So let me know if you want them. All right, thanks, bye.